on Ukraine, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there last night with Vladimir Putin. Can you give us an update about those talks? It sounds from what the Kremlin is saying that they're not going to compromise. Can you tell us what you've...
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. It's, when I was in this office and I talked about no cards, I said, you have no cards. That was the time to settle. I thought that would have been a much better time to settle. But they, in their wisdom, decided not to do that. They have a lot of things against them right now. But you have President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take two to tango. You know, Ukraine, I think we have something pretty well worked out with them. They're very satisfied, considering. But the sad part is, if I were president, no war would have ever happened. They would have had 100% of their territory. Nothing would have happened. It's a very sad situation. So think of this. Last month, 27,000 soldiers. 27. That's like you take a stadium, a football stadium, not an arena, and you cut it in half. 27,000 people died. Young, mostly young soldiers, died last month, in 1 month. And that's the only reason I'm involved. You know, we're not spending any money in the war. We're selling to NATO. We're not being ripped off like we were under Biden. Biden was handing everybody everything we had, giving them all the missiles, everything they wanted, free, no charge. He had no idea what he was doing. They're paying top dollar, full price for everything. Goes to NATO, and then NATO distributes it. NATO pays us. So it's not money. We would all, I think I can speak for everyone behind here. The politicians I know and the auto manufacturers are good people. They don't want to see 27,000 people die for no reason whatsoever. And that's the only reason I'm trying to help. Yeah, please.
Last night, did they give you the sense that President Putin still wants to end the war, wants to make peace?
He would like to end the war. That was their impression. Now, whether or not, that was their impression. You know, their impression was that he would like to see the war ended. I think he'd like to get back to dealing a more normal life. I think he'd like to be trading with the United States of America, frankly, instead of, losing thousands of soldiers a week. But their impression was very strongly that he'd like to make a deal. We'll see what happens.
Today, I received regular reports from our team on work with partners. In Brussels today are Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, and the Chief of the General Staff. We're working at all levels to secure support, defensive, diplomatic, and support for our resilience. Andriy Sybiha represented our state today in the Ukraine NATO Council format. Rustem Umerov and Andriy Natov communicated with the national security teams of European leaders. The most important thing is Europe's effective involvement in our defense, and also in guaranteeing security after this war. Activity is at its maximum to bring this war to an end. And from our side, from Ukraine state, there will be no obstacles or delays. We are fully constructive, very swift in working with partners, and everyone acknowledges this, including the American side. We're preparing meetings in the United States. After the American team returns from Moscow and following the relevant consultations in Washington, Rustem Umerov, Andriy Natov, along with the rest of the negotiating team, will continue discussions with envoys of President Trump. We expect news in the coming days regarding such meetings, contacts, and talks, whether in person or by phone. All partners are in regular contact with each other and with Ukraine. Everything is now proceeding quite effectively. At meetings in Geneva and Florida, Ukraine was heard, and Ukraine was listened to. And that matters. We expect it will continue exactly this way. Right now, the world clearly feels that there is a real opportunity to end the war, and current diplomatic activity and negotiations must be backed by pressure on Russia. Everything depends on this very combination. Constructive diplomacy plus pressure on the aggressor. Both components work toward peace. It's also important that there's constructive internal work in Ukraine. I thank the parliamentarians for voting on the state budget for next year. This guarantees that we will deliver on the financial work. The government of Ukraine is working well with our partners to cover deficits. There's an understanding of how this will be done. We are also continuing the full reorganization and cleansing policy of the energy and defense sectors. Today, I had a detailed conversation with Prime Minister of Ukraine Yulia Sviridenko. I am grateful that all processes are moving quickly, including the reboot of supervisory boards in energy companies. The Minister of Defense, Denis Shmyhal, will promptly ensure the reboot of supervisory boards of defense enterprises. We also have consultations on parliamentary work. I had a detailed discussion today with the head of the majority faction and other representatives of the Verkhovna Rada about the budget law. Key points are being observed. Thank you. A few more things. Partners have made decisions on arms procurement in the United States under the PURL initiative. Today, Norway announced a new contribution to PURL. Thank you. Also Luxembourg. Canada is increasing its contribution. We know about Poland's contribution. And just recently, the Netherlands made a decision. The first contributions from countries outside NATO are also coming. I want to thank everyone personally. I am awaiting a report on the full results of the PURL initiative. This is a special task for Ukrainian diplomacy, to keep up the pace in defense programs and projects with America and other partners. Diplomatic momentum largely determines the strength of our defense against Russian occupiers and the potential of our active measures, our long-range capabilities, and our protection from Russian strikes. Living next to Russia is dangerous in any circumstances.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.